Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Donna Berger. I'm the Director of the Office of Traffic Safety with the Department of Public Safety. And today we're here to talk about distracted driving. On average, 25% of all crashes are related to distracted driving. In 2013, that alone meant that there were nearly 18,000 crashes, 68 deaths, and more than 8,000 injuries in Minnesota related to this problem. That's why we're here today, to introduce a 10-day enhanced law enforcement and education campaign that's going to focus on distracted driving. It will start tomorrow and it will run through Sunday, April 20th. Nearly 400 Minnesota law enforcement agencies will be joining together in this effort to patrol and focus on distracted driving. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and it's the goal of this campaign to get everyone to get their hands off their cell phones and their eyes and their mind on the road. Today, after this news conference, we ask you to join us on the bus ride. We're going to take a short ride around so you can see for yourselves to get a higher vantage point about the big problem of distracted driving that everyone's encountering on our roads today. Several law enforcement agencies around the state will also be using buses or taller vehicles to help law enforcement identify motorists who are engaging in this dangerous behavior. In addition to the enhanced enforcement, you'll hear media messages on radio and TV reminding motorists to pay attention and avoid distractions. Why? Because no distraction is worth a life. No distractions are worth the 68 lives that were lost on Minnesota roads last year. Those 68 victims are in our thoughts, and they drive our mission to eliminate these preventable crashes. We all need to do our part and eliminate distractions in our own vehicles and always focus on the task of driving. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Lieutenant Eric Roski from the Minnesota State Patrol.
Thank you, Donna. As Donna mentioned, distracted driving is a major factor in about 25% of all of our crashes in Minnesota. When you're not focused on the road, whether you're texting or talking, eating, selecting music, or simply daydreaming, you're pulling your focus away from the important and critical task of driving. It's illegal for all drivers to text, email, and surf the web while driving. This includes when you're stopped at a traffic light or traffic sign, or you're slowed due to congestion. In addition, it's illegal for drivers under 18 to use a cell phone while driving, whether hands-free or handheld, except in the case of emergency to call 911. Also, distracted drivers can be ticketed for reckless or careless driving when their actions demonstrate a disregard for the safety or rights of others. Unfortunately, since Minnesota's no texting and driving law was enacted in August 2008, citations have increased each year. Last year alone, there were nearly 2,000 citations written for distraction or texting and driving violations. We ask you to stay safe and stay focused when you're driving. And remember, law enforcement will increase patrols focused on distracted driving in April, between April 11th and 20th. I'd now like to introduce Major Daryl Huggett of the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. Daryl?
Thank you, Lieutenant Roski. I first want to thank the Minnesota Department of Public Safety and the State Patrol in their efforts to prevent distracted driving and for including the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in this event. We all know that distracted driving is deadly. No text or email is worth putting your life or other lives at risk. Law enforcement agencies are working together both at the state and local levels to enforce distracted driving. As part of the Toward Zero Death campaign, throughout the month of April, there are 6 different dates in which partnering law enforcement agencies in Hennepin County will be specifically targeting distracted drivers. You're probably familiar with the saturation patrols used to catch drunk drivers. This operation will be very similar, only we'll be looking for persons that are impaired by texting. Public safety is a partnership. We need your help. Law enforcement can't alone eliminate distracted driving. Every driver has a responsibility to operate their vehicle safely. And passengers, even younger passengers, can help enforce distracted driving. This is why the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office is providing distracted driving information to some of the youngest residents in Hennepin County. Hennepin County Sheriff's Office Community Engagement Team is starting a brand new initiative aimed at kids who are not yet old enough to drive. It's called Enjoy the Ride, Don't Text and Drive. If kids are in a car with their parents, brothers, or sisters, and they're texting, the Sheriff's Office is asking them to step up and say something. They can even offer to be a designated texter. This message is going out to kids in various schools around Hennepin County. The bottom line is that distracted driving is unsafe, it's irresponsible, and just 1 second of not paying attention can have devastating consequences. To conclude, I want to thank our partners in law enforcement in helping spread the awareness about this issue. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office is dedicated in working as a team on continued efforts to keep the roads safe and free from distracted drivers. I'd like to now introduce Sergeant Mark Persons of the Golden Valley Police Department.
Thank you, Major Huggett. I'm Sergeant Mark Persons with the Golden Valley Police Department. We all can play a role when it comes to traffic safety. If you're a driver, avoid the urge to answer that text. Set your music and your iPads and MP3 players before you drive. Eat when you get to your destination, not while you're getting there. Pull off the road if you become too drowsy or feel too tired to drive. Be mindful when talking to your passengers, because a conversation can be just as distracting as a text message. Turn off your cell phone or simply put it out of reach. When you take the keys, make sure you prepare yourself mentally to focus on the drive. If you're a passenger, you can also help stop distractions. Speak up to stop a driver from distracting behaviors, and volunteer to help the driver by being a designated texter or by answering the cell phone when the driver is busy. Finally, you can help stop driver distraction even if you're not in a vehicle. If you call or receive a call from someone who is driving, take responsibility on yourself and tell them to call you back later. Do your part and help us all take action against driver distraction. Thank you.
We'll have any time for some questions for any of our speakers.
Is there any one event or any series of events that proved or served as a catalyst for this campaign, or what is it?
Well, distracted driving is on the rise. It's pretty much equal to the problem of drunk driving in the 1980s, when we have 25% of our crashes are now contributing factor is distracted driving. We have to focus more on it. We have to draw attention. We have to educate people the dangers. People drive the same route every day. They become complacent, and it takes a split second for something to change on the road. So it's very important that you're constantly focusing on the task of driving. You know, it started out that it was the younger drivers, the teenagers, that were doing more of the texting and driving, but it is now parents are texting back with their teens and their children, and it's really become a problem that's across all age groups.
How does the current law,
I'm sorry.
how does the current law, what are the penalties for distracted driving?
Well, specifically for texting and driving, it's illegal to send, receive, or read an electronic message while in traffic. So, you know, in layman's terms, texting, reading email, accessing the internet while your vehicle's in traffic is a violation of that specific law about electronic communications. penalties can vary. Fines are typically around $120 to $130. It can vary slightly from county to county, but I'd like to remind, and we all feel strongly, that this is not a enforcement campaign as much as an educational campaign. By the time we stop a vehicle, by the time we respond to a crash, it's too late. And people need to be aware of the dangers of distracted driving and take steps to prevent it so that they don't have to meet one of us in one of those unfortunate situations. Well, each circumstance related to a crash, has its individual characteristics. We base it on our experience, our conversations with the drivers involved. For example, countless times a day during rush hour, we handle a rear-end crash on the freeway. So there's got to be a reason that thousands of vehicles on that same roadway were able to stop and deal with the congestion and slowdowns, and this particular one ran into the vehicle in front of it. Most of the time people say, I didn't realize traffic was slowing, or all of a sudden the vehicle stopped in front of me. And a lot of times it's driver's own involvement or admissions. Let me restate that. Well, and it's not just based on what the drivers tell us. I mean, we can look at the evidence, the circumstances, and make a determination. But in all likelihood, it probably is underreported to a certain extent, and that's why it's so important for people to recognize the importance of focusing when they're behind the wheel.
Can you talk about how do you determine if somebody is texting or dialing a phone number? And what do you have to be able to prove that they were breaking the law to give them a citation?
Well, again, it's based on observations of the officers. When we go on the bus today, you'll see, I'm sure you'll see a number of situations where it's just like any other violation. We have to establish probable cause to make the traffic stop that there's a violation, and then if we're going to write a citation, it's based on the facts and evidence that we gather. But it's something that, apart from that, most of the time, what draws our attention to the vehicle is some other movement, drifting among the lanes, or a vehicle that has to stop abruptly because it appears the driver wasn't paying attention. So it's oftentimes dangerous behaviors that draw our attention to the vehicle, and then we observe the behavior by the driver.
But it is legal to dial a phone number, is that right?
Correct. It's not illegal to dial or talk on the phone, but people also need to recognize, motorists need to recognize that it can be a distracting behavior that can, at the wrong time in the wrong place, be a significant factor and cause a crash.
And what about like scrolling through their address book to find a phone number? Does that fall into dialing a phone number, or is that considered surfing or texting?
Well, again, it comes down to how much risk you want to take on. Whether it's legal or not isn't really isn't that important at that time. If you're scrolling through your phone and you slam into the vehicle in front of you, okay, maybe you weren't breaking the law because you're looking up a phone number, but you just crashed and maybe could hurt or kill someone else. So again, this isn't about trying to tell people what they can get away with. It's about them recognizing the jeopardy and the dangers they place themselves and others in when they engage in distracting behaviors.